Good evening and welcome back to the Sabi Street Show. Today we have a special guest yet again, and on my left here in the studio is Grant Piper, inaugural chairman of NERN, National Rational Energy Network. Quite a mouthful, but Grant, can you tell us more about what NREN is or was and what their activities are?
Yep. Yeah, I know it's a difficult name. It gets easier with practice, and I spent a lot of time trying to brainstorm a name, and I kept searching things, and the initials, the acronym had already been taken, so NREN hadn't, and I wanted something that was national and rational, as in the ethos of what we're about. Like, we weren't going to get into fairy tales and stuff like that, so that's how we ended up with NREN. You can blame me. And the idea of it was to have a national group that would unite or connect all the little local groups fighting, pushing back against the transition of power lines of solar and wind in their own area. So there were lots of people. We were subject to it as well. And when we first got hit, we thought we were the, it was just us. And then we tried to find other people. It took a while to find them. And then we just found that they were all in a similar situation. It was actually quite hard to find because they didn't get any press coverage. They're even hard to find on Facebook. Like, you'd think about, but you didn't know the name of their group, so they're hard to find. But anyway, we found a few people and we connected them up. And then out of Barnaby Joyce's office, the ladies in his office were also affected by power lines and wind turbine projects up in New England Renewable Energy Zone, and they were very receptive. And we sort of agreed that a national group needed to be set up, and we'd already set up a local group. And so we threw our lot in with that effort to set up a national group. And out of that process, I ended up being the only mug to put my hand up to be chair.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so I, after beating back all the opposition, I ended up with the job. And so we went from there, linking up all the groups. There was also already a national information network that was started by Bill Stinson, who became secretary of NREN. There was also Lynette LeBlack down at Wagga, who was very active on the phone, and Marsha McIntyre in Victoria, the Wallaloo Gree Alliance down there near St. Anord. She set up a WhatsApp group as well, her and Lynette. And so between Bill Stinson's email list, the WhatsApp group, and then NREN, we've been adding names and contacts and groups, and that's the main coordinating network we have. And one thing from the outset, I mean, I don't speak for any other group. We're not an umbrella body or a peak body, if you like. We don't want that responsibility. We can't speak for them because we didn't want to get compromised. And I was aware I didn't want to get compromised by being invited into negotiations possibly, and then having the media or the politician or whoever come out and go, "Oh, we've reached agreement," and then so we're just a coordinating group. If we could craft an overall strategy to win, that would be good. But mainly it was to support all these individual groups and unite them so they can swap information. It's like, the more nodes you have in the network, the more powerful it is. And so that was our main job, as I see it. And I think that worked fairly well for a fair period there.
Good. I dearly hope you succeed. I mean, you're aware I'm part of the Libertarian Party. I'm a candidate for Barton. Where you are, there's Sally Edwards, Mark Honcho's not far. And our emphasis is to have a completely free energy market. And then whoever wins, wins. Now, I was involved in the national electricity market about 20 years ago. And it's not so much coal used to win, but about 85% of the energy came from black coal and brown coal. The stations were on 24/7 because it's too expensive to turn them off. And then we had some open cycle gas turbines, and on a really hot day, when you have, in those days, $10,000 a megawatt hour for wholesale price, now it's $12,500. You would have some hydro jet fuel fired power plants. We never needed, and we never thought about anything like wind turbines and solar. What's your view on those? Are they just virtue signaling, or are they actually very harmful, especially the wind turbines?
Well, I think primarily the virtue signalling, yes. I think they're all for optics. They're to say, look what we're doing, but they produce very little power in the grid because of the, obviously, inefficiency and the unreliability of them. The second part of it is to shuffle money. Like, you need a big project and big dollars, and then lots of money goes around. Maybe it pumps the GDP and might help that way. But as far as generating electricity goes, they're terrible. I studied engineering. I'm an aeronautical engineer by training. And so the sheer inefficiency of this, you would never design an engineering system to generate bulk power like this. I can't believe that this has reached the light of day. I mean, that is the biggest thing that offends me about these industrial scale solar and wind projects. When you already have a grid that works and has worked for however many years.
Yes.
Our grandparents weren't stupid. They built an efficient, cheapest, best possible grid to service. This is just an absolute obscene monstrosity. You would never design anything like this if you seriously want it to work. And as you said, backed up with, it all has to be, you got to build 3 grids. You got to build, like South Australia's got enough solar to power all of South Australia sometimes. It's got enough wind to power all of South Australia sometimes, and it's also got enough gas or diesel to power South Australia all the time. And then when they finish building the interconnectors, they'll have enough capability to import power from Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania to power all of South Australia as well. So you've got 3 or 4 duplicates. You've got to rebuild everything 3 times, and most of the time, all your equipment, your capital, sitting there doing nothing, waiting to be
crazy.
turned on.
It's like having 3 car dealerships of the same, Hyundai next to each other.
Well,
you're only ever using one.
That's right. It's worse, probably worse. But I mean, it just makes no sense, and I just cannot believe it's reached the point that it has. And the absolute lies that you can claim that they don't have a technical knowledge or they don't understand, but I think they understand very well, but they just lie. They should know by now. This is well known. Every country in the world that has pursued renewables, I don't like the word, but we'll use it, their cost has gone up, their reliability has gone down. And you look at Germany, talk about virtue signalling and optics. They built this stuff hand over fist. They shut down nuclear and coal, but in reality, the only thing keeping the industry going was Russian gas. And when they lost Russian gas, now they're in a world of hurt. They're deindustrialising. So all the wind and solar is just for looks. It's just, as you say, virtue signalling. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
So if you were, just hypothetically, if you were the energy czar of Australia, what would you do? Refurbish the coal, or go like Peter Dutton, get nuclear built at our, as in taxpayers' cost, or just go back to a free market?
There's 2 discussions here. I mean, I think logically and from an engineering sense and economically, the cheapest way would be just to refurbish and build new coal on the existing sites. And we should never have stopped building coal.
Yeah.
And if you want to build nuclear, I think we should never have stopped building nuclear either. I mean, I think we should have that skill, because we should maintain those skills and develop those skills, because if you don't use them, you lose them. And I reckon even if we decided tomorrow to build a new coal plant, we'd be in trouble because we've lost a generation of engineers and technicians.
Yeah.
So even 19th century technology like that, we would probably struggle to do cost effectively and on time. And given it's Australia, that would be, but that would be the simplest solution. Who pays for it and how that's managed? I probably differ from the libertarians in this, in that I don't think any natural monopoly should be in private hands. I think that unfortunately has to be in government hands or public hands, whichever way you see it, because I just don't see it. Private industry, if it's a monopoly, you're over a barrel. And
but if I may, the in the national electricity market, the private generators do compete. I mean, the product's the same. It's a bunch of electrons, but they compete on price and timing.
Where's that, sorry?
They compete on price and timing.
Internationally or where?
No, even in the national market. So if you have hydro, you wouldn't want to use it except during peaking periods because you've got a limited amount of fuel. If you have coal, you're going to keep it on 24/7 because that's what makes sense.
You run it at its design point, and that's the most efficient. If you want to reduce emissions, you run it at its design point. Yes, but the market isn't really the market can be whatever you want it to be because you change the market settings and the market changes. I mean, I don't have this belief in the one market under God type thing where there's some secret deity that somehow if you have a market, everything works out. I mean, we've been through the GFC, we've been through the 87, we've been through the dot-com, we've been through how many crises. I mean, the market should have been allowed to die and put out its misery. It's been bailed out by us. So I don't know how anyone can rationally argue that the market will solve the problems. I mean, you change the market settings. They bid on 5-minute blocks for electricity. How crazy is that? Make them bid for 24-hour blocks. And then see what the landscape is like. You won't have wind and solar. But, because it's 5-minute blocks, they can go, oh, look, solar's cheap for this 5 minutes or wind's cheap for this 5 minutes. But even the UK uses, I think, half-hour blocks, but make it a 24-hour block. I mean, there's no point if you can't switch on your light and the light comes on. It's got to be on 24 hours. So make them bid for 24-hour blocks.
Makes sense. Peter Dutton's strategy, you obviously don't like it, I guess.
Well, no, I think I haven't followed every parry and thrust of the election because it's just so mind-numbing nonsense theatre. But no, I'm very disappointed in the coalition in that, they're sticking to the net zero ambition. The nuclear is sort of like a half-baked thought balloon. There's no, and I agree, unfortunately, with Holmes of Court and people on that side saying you will never build it in time. What do we do now? And I agree. I don't think we'll build nuclear in time. And then you've got all the other problems in that all the power station sites are owned by private companies now or on state territory. So you'd have to negotiate with the states, and all the states are obviously, apart from Queensland, are Labor. So you've got that problem. And they're never going to play ball. So that's going to delay and make things expensive. I mean, to establish Jervis Bay and the ACT, New South Wales passed surrender legislation, I think in 1909 and 1913 or something, to give that land to the Federation for Parliament and for Jervis Bay. So unless the states are going to pass surrender legislation and give those power station sites to the federal government, or the federal government can force their arm somehow, I don't know how they're going to do that. So, no, I think the coalition just floated this, but it's not really we're a long way up a blind alley now, and nuclear isn't going to fix our shortages now, and the shortages that are coming in the next...
Very soon, because it's coal gets... And that's why Dutton's now trying to reserve some gas from exports, which is, again, something we don't like. But, a gas-fired plant can't be built in a day either.
Well, not a proper one. As I say, they'll plonk down an open cycle plant here, there, and plug it in. But building a proper closed cycle efficient plant, 60+% thermally efficient, I don't know whether we've got any of those in Australia. I'm not real sure, but they're not really talking about that. It's just a stopgap measure to prop up a renewables-based system that, it doesn't work at all.
Okay, so obviously not Labour, not Greens, Steels are horrible. Is there someone's energy policy that you do like?
Well...
Besides Libertarians, of course.
Yeah, well, look, any of them would be better than what's on offer. I think out of the rational minor parties, like, as you say, the One Nation Libertarian, Trumpet, or Citizens Party, they've all got sensible energy policies, but obviously they're never going to be in a position to implement them. There's only detailed differences, like I said, about the market versus for Libertarian, for example, but none of them. Anyone that wants to get out of the net zero Paris Accord stuff is better than what we've got in the major parties. I mean, even the National Party. I mean, the National Party is just, they won't even come out and say they want to get out of it.
No, they won't. Well, I think in the past it was in hushed corridors and not public. and might be still the case, which is kind of amazing because Donald Trump won on that basis, exit the Paris Accord, and he did it on day one or day two, so many executive orders. I don't know why Peter Dutton didn't have the courage when he saw that conservative wave sweeping the US. It's been sweeping Europe the last couple of years. I mean, he had a golden opportunity. Albanese was already unpopular.
And Bowen is more unpopular.
Yes.
He's missing. To speculate, I don't know, but I think a bit like the established European bureaucracy and elites, or at the moment, I think they're sort of thinking that Trump's an aberration, and that if they just really close their eyes, that he'll go away, and they've just got to hang in there for 4 years, and then it'll go back to normal.
Probably won't. I mean, I hope someone like J.D. Vance or someone else gets another 8 years for the Republicans, because you've got to really squash that net zero animal completely.
Yes. Well, you would think so.
Yeah. And we might get a chance in 3 years' time, but probably not in this election. It's not going to happen unless, strangely, if the Liberal coalition came into power in a very strange way from here, and then they decided, we can't wait 20 years for nuclear, so let's just refurbish some coal. But that's stretching the imagination.
I think, I've been waiting, and maybe I'm optimistic. I've been waiting for reality to hit home, that the denial of reality will mug them eventually, and the extension of the power station contracts to keep them, pushing back the closure dates. I think that's just going to keep happening, unless they want us, they want to really commit suicide, I think, so the reality, I think, is coming, but I must admit, I thought it would have got here by now. I thought the reality of the situation would have sunk in by now.
Yeah. The higher prices have obviously arrived, but not yet the brownouts and blackouts to the degree that would shake people up in New South Wales.
Not to the consumer, but industry is already curtailing use of power, and like the where they sucked everyone's batteries dry in Victoria, and where they turned off people's aircon in Queensland. It wouldn't. I don't know whether they're going to do that too many times before they have to do something different. I'm hopeful that reality will sink in. It doesn't matter who is in power, whether it's coalition or whether it's Labor, and they'll go, you know what, we actually need to build a new power station, and I don't care how they couch it in terms of, we've got this shortage, and we need this to tide us over the next 10 years or 15. I don't know how they phrase it, but well, that's the thing. Part of NREN's job, as I saw it, was hopefully starting the public discourse so that we created the atmosphere that would allow politicians to be brave enough to change direction. And I must admit, I think we haven't achieved that. It'd be nice if the media atmosphere was more welcoming of counter discussions. It's getting there. It's changing, but it's much slower than what I thought it would be.
We call it sort of extending the Overton window, and so it becomes the part of the acceptable debate. And absolutely right, that hasn't happened. I'm hoping, and better, in your area, regional and rural areas suffering the ill effects of windmills and noise and reliability, and the so much land being taken away. Somewhere they're going to lose seats, I hope.
Well, maybe not, because I'm in the Parks electorate, which is South Australia, Queensland border, all that out there, and it's 60% national, two-party preferred. We're irrelevant. Our vote doesn't matter. So we've got 10 candidates running for the House of Reps. Last election, I scrutineered. I think that combined, all the minor parties got rational minor parties got 17%. Labor got 18%. Nationals got 42 or 3%. But then two-party preferred, the Nationals ended up with over 60%. So I don't think they're going to lose that seat, even though we're against it, and a lot of people. It's only a minority of people, landowners that are hosts, that are for it. Even our local council, Warren Bungall's put in an opposing submission, and Midwestern Council as well are opposed, but they're not in the planning. It's been taken back to the state level. So where does roadkill, as I see it? I mean, the steamroller's rolling and it's roadkill.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the Titanic's going to turn around quick enough to save us.
Yeah. Okay, last question of the day. Is there any chance that we can get people like you into the discussion in universities or high schools, call it a guest lecture or whatever? Can we open up the discussion among the young? Because, you get statistics like 75% of people below 30 vote Greens, or they think we have a climate emergency, and, the truth is not. They're getting brainwashed at an early age,
yes.
And the truth is just not out there.
Yeah. Look, I don't think me talking at school or university would help, and I wouldn't get an invite anyway. I mean, anyone that talks this is already uninvited and cancelled.
Yeah.
Which is the way our opposition handles things. They won't engage in any debate, technical debate on the issues. All they do is call your names and then walk away. I mean, they don't. I mean, we're used to it by now, and I don't really know how to change it. The youth, yes, I've had that discussion with a few young people, university students or graduates, and you're right. Most, unfortunately, they're fully on board with the story.
Completely the wrong thing.
And I don't know how to make headway. I mean, I'm not the guy to speak to. I mean, I'll try, but, listen to Ian Plimer, read some of his books. Professor Happer, read some of his stuff. Willie Sung, or there's any number of people who are qualified and have the receipts that can argue the case much better than me. But they're not invited to these. They're not reported in the press. They're cancelled, and that's the way we're treated. And so there's a whole cultural now problem in the West about it's a lot broader than just renewables and the climate change thing. But I mean, I had a discussion with a friend, acquaintance. He's pro-nuclear, and so am I. And he spoke at some of our rallies that NREN held, but we differ on some fundamental things. He's doing nuclear because we need to do it for climate change to reduce emissions. And like I said to him the other day, I said that it's moved on. I mean, a few years ago it was, everyone thought we have to do something about climate change. And now now everyone sees it's a scam. I think more people see it as a scam. It's not, so people's consciousness has changed. But I think the established media, the politicians, and that strata, they lag the population. I think they lag where the people are.
In a way, they are the decisive force because, there's this saying 97% of the scientists agree, which is absolutely untrue. It's a lot less than that. But it's more like 97% of the research funds are allocated if you speak their narrative. So naturally, a lot of people fall into the trap of getting fame and glory and prestige, or the other side is getting cancelled. So.
Well, this didn't happen overnight. I mean, it's been coming for 40, 50 years or longer. Depending on whether you believe it started with the Club of Rome in whenever that was, 72 or something.
68,
or whether it started with the first conference in Rio in 92. But there's plenty of people who have connected those dots and can show the shaping of public opinion and the conscious decision to go this way. It's not revolutionary information, it's public information, open source info, but it doesn't get beaten up on every news show, on every TV show, in every newspaper every day of the week. It doesn't matter what you turn on ABC, there will be a climate change message in there.
Pretty much,
So it seems like, once again, the post-truth world, or facts don't matter, seems to be true to a point, but at some point reality is going to mug us.
Yeah, hopefully it's not drastically late. Any last message you have for any of the candidates out there that are rational about energy?
Well, I wish a couple of things. I mean, this is frustrating to me in our electorate. We've got we've got 10 candidates in the House of Reps. I don't know, and I know the one next door, Clare, has 10 candidates as well. I mean,
there's some that have 15 and 16 actually.
I mean, the minor parties, the rational parties, and the independents, we're cannibalising each other. I mean, you can't do much about the House of Reps. The preferences are going to flow, but I mean, if we had one good independent candidate in our seat, and we campaigned on the ground for that one candidate, if combined they had 17%, if we campaigned well, we could possibly overtake Labor and get into second place and change the flow of preferences. But with 3 or 4 independent candidates and minor parties, we're never going to do that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, at least on our Senate ticket, on the Libertarians, we have a combined ticket. Craig Kelly heads it up. And Michael O'Neill from Hart is in there as well. And there's an agreement with Jared Rennick as well.
Well,
so
that's
Australia First Alliance. So we have an alliance for the Senate.
Well, I think that's clear who to vote for, one in the Senate. And I'd just like to say that the voting guidelines is you've got to number 1 to 6 above the line in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
But as a scrutineer, the scrutineer's handbook says they have vote-saving provisions. So if people misvote or there are provisions to make a valid vote or count that vote, even if they don't number 6. So above the line, you can number 1 and stop there, and that is still going to be counted as valid.
Okay.
Or you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 and stop there. They are still valid votes. It's just that they recommend you number 6. Okay. So for the people out there listening, if you weren't wondering about where to put your 4, 5, and 6 votes in the Senate above the line, you don't need to actually allocate them to anyone. Just number the groups that you are confident you're happy with. I don't see any benefit, unless I missed something. I don't see any benefit of numbering 1 to 6 or 1 to 12. I mean, the problem we have, we don't even have an independent senator in New South Wales, not like Queensland. But it comes down to the residual votes. But we've got to make sure that our preferred independent or minor party, your group ticket, if you like, has more residual votes than the next Labor or Liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have enough residual votes in that column to then start harvesting preferences, well, Liberal will pick up another
seat,
the third seat or something. I don't know how we do it, but we've got to try and campaign and educate the rational independent voters, the Freedom Party type voters, that we need to corral our votes into a column and be rigorous with that. Otherwise, we won't get the residual required.
Yeah.
That's what I see as the risk there.
Okay. So we'll hope at least Craig Kelly gets in.
We'd hope so. That would be good. I'd like to see Craig back in there, because probably 90% of the people in Parliament would not like to see him back in there.
That's a good reason for him to be back in there. It's for the right reason. I mean, he's sacrificed his political career for truth.
Yes.
And he deserves both justice and praise for that.
He does. I mean, yes. I mean, he's been on the money the whole time through COVID, and he's taken a lot of flack for it. And as you say, he's lost a lot through it. But he's been on the money. I mean, some people are a bit like they're sick of hearing Craig, but you look at what he says, or listen to what he says, he's generally right. He's on the money all the time. Just like Malcolm Roberts and Jared Rennick in Queensland. How do you see that turning out?
I never like to predict anything.
I think it's just unfortunate. I mean, they're going to cannibalise each other. And I don't know who's going to come out on top, but it'll be sad to lose either of them, but we're not going to get both of them.
Yeah.
And that's bad. And hopefully we get one of them. It'd be because it's quite likely, or potentially it's possible, that we won't end up with either of them.
Yeah.
And that would be just a disaster.
That would be.
I don't want to think about it, but that would be terrible.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, let's hope for the best. And that's Grant Piper. Thank you for coming in.
No problem.
And we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
Yes. And we'll hang in there and keep fighting regardless of what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all we can do. And wait for, I don't know how you wake people up, and I don't know how you change the zeitgeist, or whatever you say it, but we need to change something pretty damn quick.
Yeah, this fight, especially for truth, in the climate area will continue, I expect, for another decade or so. And then, unfortunately, we might end up in blackouts before the population awakens. And hopefully that isn't the case, but we shall see.
All right.
All right. And to the viewers and readers out there, thank you for listening. Authorized by Vinay Kolhatkar for the Libertarian Party, Chulin Parade, Prestons, New South Wales, 2170.